My name is Dr. Hillel Mazansky, and I'm coming to you. Those who follow me regularly, you will notice that I'm casually dressed because I'm broadcasting this YouTube video from my home in La Jolla, California, having just watched the most gorgeous sunset. The weather temperature is 73 here on the ocean, clear blue skies, and what a magnificent sunset. I've seen it many times, and the more I see it, the more I want to look at it. My house, as I said, is located in La Jolla, California, and it is absolutely a stone's throw from where Mr. Mitt Romney bought his house, and at the present time it's undergoing a construction. To call it a house, well, I don't know. It's going to be more like a mansion. Today's YouTube video health tip is concerning childhood obesity, a passion that I share with our First Lady, Michelle Obama. Childhood obesity, a volcano about to erupt. It is pandemic, not epidemic. What we mean by pandemic, we mean that childhood obesity is now worldwide, even in the African countries. It's never been seen before. Here in the United States, the incidence is increasing by leaps and bounds, despite there being a concerted effort by our First Lady and all her organizations. Let's Move, PreventObesity.net. Local governments are working on it. Why are we failing? That is the question. Why? Why are more and more of our kids becoming obese? Not even our kids, also our teenagers. The answer is not simple, but no one in our country, from the government in Washington down to the parent, is to blame. No one is held blameless. The advertising industry, the media, the food industry, the schools, the physicians, the teachers, the parents, all are to blame. It is a question of calories in versus calories out. Obese children begin from the day they were born if they are not nursed. Studies have shown that nursed children have far less of an incidence of childhood obesity than those that are bottle-fed or formula-fed. I implore all females that I see in the street or in my office, and I see they are pregnant. I am given to talking to people very easily, and I explain to a pregnant mother, first of all, about the nutrition blogs on my website, www.gianinc.com, on my Facebook page at facebook.com/guided imagery. I tell the mothers, please, I beg you, when your child is born, nurse your child. For, as I mentioned, the incidence of nurse-fed children are less. Teach your children. Set an example to them by eating correctly in your home. Do not ingratiate yourself by giving candies and cookies, I say. Rather, give them a small piece of carrot, a small piece of fruit, put on a dab of organic peanut butter, and give it to them. Childhood obesity is my passion, as is the First Lady's. The question begs of itself, what are we going to do? A young obese child suffers psychologically beforehand and becomes a compulsive eater. And when you delve into their minds, as I do with guided imagery, there is such a large percentage of those kids that are sexually abused. They don't remember it at that young age, but they begin eating and eating and eating, becoming more and more overweight. Becoming overweight, they are shunned by their peers at school who tease them because they are obese, calling them fatty and all these terrible, heinous words. The child suffers further complexes, being excluded from sports and other activities. The child goes home, sits at home, and watches the TV and eats the junk food. Now I ask you, the parents, you need to take responsibility. You need to start feeding your kids in the correct manner from the day that they are born. When I speak to young females who are pregnant, I say to them, the first thing that you can do is to discard your TV sets. They think for an instant and suddenly you can see the light gleam. They say, oh yes, that's a good idea. The obese kids being shunned and scorned by their peers, in the afternoon, instead of playing outside and exercising with them, playing whatever games, the kids come home. They sit in front of the TV set, not exercising, but chewing on the munchies and the garbage. What a vicious cycle. In the more affluent societies, childhood obesity is less than the lower socioeconomic groups. And here in the United States, it's mainly in the African American and the Hispanic community, especially here in California, Texas, and elsewhere. I try to instill in the parents a value, a sense of value, and I shock treat them. I say, if you don't feed your kids correctly, your kids are going to become obese and you do not want to be at their burial. Obese kids today, for the first time in history, are suffering and are taking the same medication for high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, antidepressants, the self-same medication as their parents or grandparents are taking. I ask you, my friends, is this the right way? Children with obesity, teens with obesity, are dying younger than the non-obese. All this, what I'm saying, comes from peer-reviewed studies done in the best of the best medical journals. Teenagers who are obese, diabetic, do not respond to the same oral hypoglycemic agents or the blood-lowering sugar tablets that their parents or grandparents take, or anyone for that matter. So they put on insulin with all its complications because the kids do not respond to medication. Obese children are suffering high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes. I also say an obese child becomes an obese adult, becomes an obese teen, becomes an obese adult, becomes obese senior if they reach seniorhood, and they become a obese corpse. That is the line. Because some of those kids do not even reach 50 years old, 45 even, before they suffered major strokes, heart attacks from their diabetes and from their high blood pressure. If it sounds gloomy, it is meant to sound gloomy. It is shock therapy. On the TV sets, these obese kids are sitting with the munchies. Mother works, father works. They haven't got time to prepare a decent breakfast. The most important meal of the day is breakfast. And the kids see the high sugar, high fructose, high glucose sodas. Mom, buy me this one or buy me that one. Mom, buy me a Pop-Tart. Mom goes and buys the Pop-Tart. The very worst thing that you can give a kid for breakfast is a Pop-Tart. It is laden with sugar. They eat it. Their blood sugar rises and they feel okay. About 10, 11 o'clock, the blood sugar plummets down because of the high sugar that they took. And then they start acting out. Well, they act out, and the teacher calls the mother or father and says, your kid is suffering from ADHD or hyperactivity syndrome. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Mother takes the kid to the doctor. In today's medicine, sometimes the child is not even seen by a physician, but is seen by a nurse practitioner. Let's assume the child or the teen is seen by the doctor. She or he is extremely busy, got a waiting room full of people. The mother says to the doctor, the nurse or the teacher says, my kid is suffering from ADHD. What does the doctor do? Writes a prescription there and there for Ritalin. Next, please, they call. This child whose blood sugar is low, is acting out, is being misdiagnosed and has been giving Ritalin. I'm not saying that there aren't kids that truly are hyperactive. Yes, and they deserve to take Ritalin because it helps them. But if those kids were fed a decent breakfast, a high-protein breakfast with calcium, milk, yogurt, and an egg or something like that, eggs are not poisonous. Obesity is. The simple carbohydrates, the high fructose, food containing prepared products, they cause high blood sugar, they cause obesity, not an egg, never. I try my very best to encourage young people especially to go to my website, www.gianinc.com, and to click on the childhood obesity icon. For everything is there what we are saying tonight. The government has to change, the physicians have to change, and above all, the parents have to change. But we understand that in the lower socioeconomic groups among us, it is the high fructose-laden, white sugar, prepared foods that they eat because it's relatively cheap. I tell and instruct and try and help the parents not to eat the food that is in the center of an aisle in a supermarket, but rather go on the periphery, where all the fresh fruit and vegetables, organic fish, etc., etc. But again, we take into consideration the cost of the foods on the periphery versus the costs of the foods in the center aisle. And then we understand. Parents who are receiving government assistance have a limited amount of money, and therefore they buy the cheapest food as possible. So where do we go? What is the solution? 6 months ago, I sent out an email to every single principal and nurse in San Diego County. Not one returned my invitation to try and assist the kids. Being one given not to lie down and take the hit, a few weeks ago I went in front of the La Jolla Town Council and spoke there for about 25 minutes about childhood obesity. There was a person in the audience who informed me that we should go and see the superintendent of schools. That appointment is for this coming Friday, the 7th, and the superintendent, with all his lieutenants and minions of attendance, will be at the meeting. It is at that meeting that I will strategize with him to try at least in San Diego County to help what I call HM's kids. Like Jerry Lewis's kids, I call all obese teenagers and kids HM's kids. Hillel Mazansky, my kids. I reschedule patients because they are not urgent. I will do anything and everything to help fight this disease. I will start here locally and expand. And as time goes on, we will learn from our experience and we will continue. I appeal to you, young parents, please do the following. First of all, if you're thinking of getting pregnant, go to my website and see my nutrition blogs for pregnancy. Exercise. Try not and have a cesarean section unless it's absolutely necessary. No more convenient cesarean sections because you want your child born on your birthday or on New Year's or because your GYN is going out of town. You get a cesarean section. In the United States, 50% of all deliveries are via cesarean section. By having the cesarean section, you lay yourself open to complications of surgery, namely bleeding, wound rupture, deep vein thrombosis, and clot in your lung. And I have seen young people die as a result of a cesarean section. Do not, unless it's absolutely necessary, do not have a cesarean section. All studies show and prove that kids who are born via cesarean section have a much greater incidence of childhood obesity. Nurse your child. Please, nurse your child. Do not nurse it for aesthetic reasons, that you do not want your breast to hang or something like that, or get ugly. Nurse-fed newborns and young kids there are 3 advantages to nursing. 1, if you nurse your child, you have a lesser incidence of breast cancer. 2, the child does not develop obesity. And 3, The bonding between a mother and a child who has been nursed is far, far greater than a formula or bottle-fed child. Nurse that child not only in the true sense of the word, but when the child develops, start from a young age by feeding the child correctly. If you want to ingratiate yourself with a child for doing well or whatever, give the kid a small carrot, a piece of fruit, with a little organic peanut butter. Do not give the kids candies and sweets and sodas. You're setting them up for death. And I mean that in all sincerity. Yes, they go to parties. Fine. Let them go to parties. Let them enjoy themselves once in a while. But don't let there be a party every day. And I know the woman and the females are rushing to work, etc., and there are all those excuses. Why not to do something? Ask not of yourself, why not? Rather say, why yes? And if you do that, my friends, you are going to have happy, healthy children. Take them outside. Play with them. Bond with them. We've also found that obese children, because they don't play outside, have a low vitamin D level. If you take your kids to the pediatrician, insist that a vitamin D level is done, especially those parents where you live in climates that don't see the sun for 6 months of the year. If the child needs a blood test, please make sure that the pediatrician or the family doctor takes a vitamin D blood level. Insist on it, whether you have an HMO or whatever. Insist that the child has a vitamin D level done. If the level is good, fine. Great. But if it's not, that child has to be given vitamin D. Don't give the children multivitamins. All studies of studies called meta-analyses have proved that multivitamins do not prevent disease, and when disease occurs, the vitamin does not help cure or treat the disease. Only if there is a known deficiency of a certain vitamin in the blood, then and only then, let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food, said Hippocrates 534 BC. We don't resort to tablets. America is so used to having a prescription. The kids have prescriptions, or they get vitamins. They are taught at a young age, if they're given a vitamin, they're taught subconsciously that the medicines cure all. Well, yes, if the kid suffers from childhood obesity, then the child will be put onto medication for high blood pressure, high cholesterol, etc., as I mentioned earlier. I think the time has expired, pun unintended, and time for me to take a nap. I was up at 1 a.m. this morning working, and I worked through the whole day, seeing 6 hypnosis patients. So I am really tired. It is now 20 till 8 Pacific Standard Time. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man and a woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. Good night, and take care of yourself, take care of your children. I thank you.